Hey friends. So, in my video about Sarah Ferguson the other day and all of the reasons, in my opinion, why the Windsors keep rehabilitating her no matter what crazy things she does, how it coincides with so much of the rest of the royal family, I think it also coincides with why they were so exasperated right off the bat with Meghan Markle because she was clearly lining up to be another Fergie. There are so many parallels in their quote unquote careers post marrying into the royals that it's really wild, especially if you've been following the story for several decades like I have. So let's dive into some of the first things, friends. So in 1996, after her divorce from Andrew, Sarah published a book called My Story. And here I have an archived article from the New York Times. Is that it's an archived page from January 5th, 1997, reviewing Fergie's book. So I thought it'd be interesting to go back and read what they said then, because it sounds very indicative of the way sometimes people describe Meghan Markle now. So here's the article, friends. It is a truth generally acknowledged that when Sarah Ferguson married Prince Andrew, now known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, second in line to the throne of Britain, she did not receive a copy of the House of Windsor playbook. As a result, this high spirited commoner committed a number of youthful indiscretions that resulted in her being purged from the royal family. Saddled with what she considers an undeserved reputation as a spendthrift and freeloader, cast out into the darkness with two small children, Miss Ferguson several years ago found herself foundering on the very shoals of fiscal disaster. As a single mother with very few assets and less income than most presumed, I was in deep financial trouble, Miss Ferguson recalls in her autobiography, My Story, harking back to those dark moments in 1992. Yet today, just 5 years later, the Duchess of York is well on her way to reversing her desperate financial situation. With the income from her Budgie the Little Helicopter children's books, the revenue stream generated by her just published memoir, and such potential gushers as a proposed endorsement deal with Weight Watchers International, Sarah Ferguson now appears to preside over a globe spanning financial empire that stretches from the cobweb nooks of Covent Garden to the towering skyscrapers of Gotham. By reinventing herself as a daring entrepreneur, Sarah Ferguson has become, one might argue, a powerful role model for single mothers everywhere, a heroic survivor. Yet to date, the Duchess of York's reemergence from the dank abyss of financial ruin has been obscured by the media's purient obsession with her amorous peccadillos. Now, with the publication of My Story and the virtually simultaneous appearance of books by her esteemed financial consigliere, Alan Starkey, I will never forget Nick Leeson and the friendship we forged, and a savvy spiritual advisor named Madame Vasso, you must be strong, you must not let them beat you. It is possible to piece together the various strands of Miss Ferguson's recent history to come to a fuller appreciation of the financial wizardry she has demonstrated. The most pivotal moment in Miss Ferguson's career occurred in November 1992 when she began researching a book about the travels of Queen Victoria. Although Miss Ferguson had already earned a measure of literary fame with her 1989 children's book, Budgie the Little Helicopter, and its remarkable sequel, Budgie at Bendix Point, these were not the types of publications likely to earn her critical respect. In 1991, she participated in the publication of Victoria and Albert, Life at Osborne House, a picture book that was, in fact, too good for me to claim as my own creation. But another book about Queen Victoria might establish her as a serious person, a student of history. This would enable Miss Ferguson to shed her reputation as a frivolous airhead, thus repositioning her in an upmarket setting. Okay, I want to stop for a minute and commentate on those few paragraphs. When she said in the first paragraph, Sarah was saddled with what she considers an undeserved reputation as a spendthrift and freeloader. Meghan Markle has complained about that too, because whenever she got into the royal family, she instantly started wearing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of clothes and accepting the freebies sent to the palace that by royal protocol they're supposed to send back. The reason why they're supposed to send them back and only purchase things themselves is so that certain commercial interests can't buy, quote unquote, royal favor by sending freebies to the royals. It's to try and prevent the kind of corruption of Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew. And Meghan just couldn't understand that. She thought that they were specifically choosing to be hard on her. Well, they had tried to be hard on Fergie and Andrew for decades, and what it gets them always is Fergie running to Oprah, as we'll see eventually in this timeline. And I get the impression that they were trying really, really hard to nip that in the bud so they didn't have to deal with another situation like that for decades. But Meghan was absolutely incapable of seeing any bigger picture than, why isn't anybody asking if I'm okay? Now, on the next paragraph, Fergie sounds a lot like Megan again. She says, as a single mother with few assets and less income than most presumed, I was in deep financial trouble. Well, Megan has tried to imply that too in their Netflix special, Harry and Meghan, and they tried to imply that in Spare and also via Omid Scobie in Finding Freedom. First off, Megan was made it clear that her and Oprah as well, she tries to be clear that it wasn't just her. Oprah was shocked too at the small, small size of Harry's cottage. He was in Nottingham Cottage at the time, known as a Knot Cot. Well, that was way smaller than Adelaide Cottage, William and Kate's place. Obviously, friends. I mean, one, the British monarchy, they're not like us Americans where we try at least, even though obviously some people have favoritism and hierarchies. The goal is for everyone in a family to be equal. And that's not the goal there. The goal is to support the heir. So, and also there's the fact that William was married with children. Of course, he was going to need a bigger place than Harry. My God. Anyway, just one of the ridiculous things. So she was, instantly like, "Oh, it's not a fairy tale," which coincidentally, Fergie also said to Oprah. Instantly appalled at the discrepancy and lack of grandeur that she thought she was gonna have. Obviously, there's grandeur there, that she's living in Kensington Palace Gardens, but it's not in an actual palace, it's a cottage. And then after they left, they made a big deal about the fact that they were completely financially cut off from the family and they had to afford security. And then Megan said in their Netflix show, "Oh, I didn't want to look at certain houses because you know what it's like whenever you can't afford a house, you don't even want to look. Well, then all of a sudden, thanks to Netflix, we could afford it." And that sounds a lot like what they're describing here with Fergie. She didn't get as much as you would think just because she's a duchess and she needed money, y'all. She had bills. Well, we know now as more and more information comes out, Fergie has always been a ridiculous spendthrift and waster. Andrew Lowney reported how she insisted, while married to Andrew, that the staff, even when it was just her and Beatrice and Eugenie there, they had to prepare a full side of beef, a leg of lamb, and a whole chicken every damn night. And then half the times her and the girls would sit around eating potato chips. Even now, there are people who work at Royal Lodge leaking stories about Andrew's upcoming move. And they're saying stuff like, oh, it's going to take months to get all their shit out. You wouldn't believe the Amazon deliveries coming up to Royal Lodge from Sarah's shopping. Even if she's secluded to just sitting there, she can still find a way to get herself into terrible debt. And other people, even some of Fergie's defenders in the past decades, whenever people are like, how do you excuse her just begging money from Epstein? And they're like, well, Fergie, she's so different from the rest of us. She allowed her debts to spiral to a level most of us can't imagine. What a polite way of saying she feels she's entitled to the freaking world and tries to buy it all on credit and then begs shady characters to pay her way out. Like, I don't condone it, but I do understand why the royal family felt she was better kept close than far away because there's no telling what she's gonna release now. We're already seeing reports that she might be considering selling off royal gifts to her, jewels, artifacts, that type of thing, that she still has explosive letters from Diana. She might do another book. Y'all, she still has her podcast. As far as I know, she hasn't quit that. I need to Google it real quick and make sure that hasn't happened in the last few days like everything else. But yeah, remember her podcast or she Tea Time with the Duchess or something like that. And she talked about, oh, her many, many comebacks from humiliation and how she kept finding the courage to stick her head above the parapet. She loves saying that word, parapet. And there are articles coming out now that she's already trying to plot her comeback, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Fergie pop up on a podcast or Oprah again, going, "Well, I always stick my head above the parapet." And then for another similarity that just come up in this first paragraph or this last paragraph that we read here, who can forget about Sarah Ferguson's Budgie the Little Helicopter? Again, right in line there with Megan's The Bench, the children's book, one of her first things. Yeah, friends, they are so much alike. Okay, this next paragraph is hilarious. Hilarious. According to Alan Starkey, who landed his position as financial advisor to Miss Ferguson because of his business relationship with John Bryan, also her financial advisor. Breaking away here, y'all remember who John Bryan is? He was the infamous toe sucker, but he likes to correct everyone and say he was not sucking her toes, he was kissing them. That makes so much difference. Yeah, it's Fergie's laying there topless in front of the children. The Duchess made a critical decision during this period. She would actually travel with her co author, Benita Stoney, and learn something about the life of Queen Victoria, just in case anyone asked. Not wishing to fall into the trap set for themselves by such authors as Charles Barkley and O.J. Simpson, both of whom claim to have been misquoted in their ghostwriter autobiographies, thus inviting jeers, catcalls, Miss Ferguson elected to steep herself in the lore of Queen Victoriana. The Duchess once bragged to me that she could field any question that was asked about her book on Queen Victoria, even though she had never read it. Mr. Starkey recalls, her cunning ploy paid off. As she proudly tells us, the book received good reviews and sold well, thus establishing Miss Ferguson as a credible, sensible, marketable personality in her own right. She never read it, friends. Oh my God. That sounds like someone else we talk about here on the channel, Gypsy Rose. She tried to tell us she never got a chance to proofread her book, even though she read the audio version. Anywho, back to Sarah in that previous paragraph. Can we get any worse here? Like O.J. Simpson, she's throwing out as an example of what she's not going to do. At this point, Miss Ferguson sagaciously chose to play the game of cat and mouse with the consuming public. Indeed, the most interesting thing about her commercial ventures through the period 1993 through 1995 is not what she did do, but what she did not do. According to Mr. Starkey, Miss Ferguson briefly considered a number of money making ventures, but at the last minute, she gave the thumbs down to all of them. One suggestion put forth was that the Duchess produce a line of Windsor Castle plates that she could then market on QVC in the United States. A second was a series of novels set in London, based on a royal theme featuring veiled autobiographical references. A third was a television miniseries tentatively titled Leave Them Smiling, in which the Duchess would travel to Eastern Europe and find some hellish place in some way associated with children. Via the camera, she would draw public attention to its plight, raise money for its sick or starving or dispossessed, and then go back and graciously hand the check over. Although any one of these ventures would have generated copious revenue for the Duchess and her impoverished children, each proposal was ultimately voted down. According to Mr. Starkey, the royal plate idea had come to nothing because Wedgwood wanted the fabrication cost of the plate up front. The manufacturer's minimum run of 10,000 plates would have cost 150,000, which the Duchess did not have. The series of novels was ditched, presumably because of an insufficient advance proposed by the publisher. And although Mr. Starkey does not say so himself, one gets the clear impression that the mission of Mercy to Eastern Europe was scrapped because it was tainted by just the faintest hint of cheesiness. So, too, the proposal for a chain of Duchess of York nursing homes for which she would receive one per bed per night for each person in the homes. What the hell? Hey friends, I wanted to insert this real quick that apparently there's a story here because this Yahoo News article says hardly any information is available about the nursing home scandal. Sarah was going to go in business and be, the face of it and have it named after her. And then the guy who was fronting it, the quote unquote businessman, was jailed for VAT fraud, so she had to withdraw. I will definitely be doing a deep dive on this, friends. Watch for a future video. Okay, that's wild that they say there, yeah, she turned them down, but it was only because they required investments from her she didn't have, or she didn't think the upfront advance was enough. Because Fergie would go on to do all of these things, all of these things. Undaunted by these setbacks, Mr. Starkey suggested that Miss Ferguson paint a watercolor depicting Windsor Castle, which would then be turned into a limited edition lithograph. again to be sold on QVC. Miss Ferguson said no. Yet another alternative was to borrow a painting of the castle done by Queen Victoria from the Royal Archives. This idea was apparently given serious consideration, but was eventually nixed because it was deemed most unlikely that Queen Elizabeth would ever give her approval of such a plan. Still a single mother, still crushed beneath a mountain of debt, the Duchess of York could easily have succumbed to the temptation to cash in on such downscale ventures as presiding over a series of luncheons to which complete strangers would pay 100,000 to dine with her. To her credit, Miss Ferguson rejected these penny-wise, pound-foolish schemes, fearing that tawdry, supplicant business enterprises like these would destroy her image forever. Instead, she quietly, diligently continued her campaign of personal reconstruction. So, yeah, another funny thing there is Meghan Markle said initially, oh, there will be no reality shows, oh, she won't be doing anything commercial, blah, 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 and this and that. They're going to do charity good works like Princess Diana kind of thing. Well, look at her now, friends. She's selling lifestyle goods just like Fergie, talking to Oprah just like Fergie. Oprah wanted to talk to Princess Diana really, really bad. Princess Diana chose badly with Martin Bashir, but she did at least stick to British news. Ooh, here we get into another wild subject about Fergie's money and coincidentally her daughters. The most critical moment in this rehabilitation process occurred in March 1996 when Miss Ferguson competed in the International Qatar Horse Marathon, sometimes known as Desert Storm. Ugh, what? This grueling 26-mile race, it served as an international platform on which a slimmer, fitter, more mature Sarah Ferguson could reintroduce herself to an astonished public. What's more, by riding in a team that finished third in a competition in which the beloved movie star Patrick Swayze had finished dead last just 1 year earlier, Miss Ferguson demonstrated that she was not just some calculating jet setter scavenging for a few lines of free press, but a gifted horse personage in her own right. Yes, it was Miss Ferguson's electrifying performance in the International Qatar Horse Marathon that sent a clear and positive message to the public. The Duchess of York is back in the saddle. So Qatar is not part of Saudi Arabia. It's on the Arabian Peninsula, but it goes to demonstrate something we've been hearing a lot about, and that is that Andrew wanted to make sure that Sarah and Beatrice and Eugenie always were financially well set. And he did so by making sure that they were very, very well connected in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, all these types of places. And there's been a lot of talk too about Kazakhstan and all the places that I just named have human rights abuse issues and a lot of corruption and scandal. But Andrew doesn't even stick to those more developed countries with human rights abuses. He has ties with some of the more horrific ones too, from what we hear and understand allegedly from the news. Okay, back to the article. In the months since her equestrian triumph in Qatar, Sarah Ferguson has taken America by storm. Hugely successful appearances on Good Morning America and The Rosie O'Donnell Show, coupled with fawning media coverage in outlets as varied as People and the Wall Street Journal, have propelled Miss Ferguson into the public relations stratosphere. Though the Duchess is certain to profit enormously from the publication of My Story and her two new children's books, The Royal Switch and Bright Lights, it is the putative arrangement with Weight Watchers International that could ensure her financial heft for many years to come. To the illustrious pantheon of female financial titans that range from Coco Chanel to Catherine Graham to Madonna. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce that Italian name. Sorry, friends. If anyone can spell it out to me phonetically like a kindergartner in the comments, I'd appreciate it. Anyway, can now be added one more name, the Fergmeister. What the Fergmeister? I am so sure Fergie give that name to herself. It's kind of like Gypsy Rose's little jersey prison handle that she tried to give herself with. Apparently, nobody but Kian ever called her that. Okay, back to the article. Readers interested in learning more details about Sarah Ferguson's spectacular rebirth as a self-organizing entrepreneuress are advised to skim Madame Vassot's slim volume, but to study diligently Mr. Starkey's copiously detailed tome. However, to understand fully Miss Ferguson's acumen, it is necessary to read my story from cover to cover. Like Sam Walton and Donald Trump before her, Miss Ferguson has written a seminal primer on the psyche of the entrepreneur, bristling with homespun wisdom sure to be passed down from generation to generation. Here are just a few examples. Okay, y'all, this writer is straight up making fun of her now. He's trolling her to her face. But let's listen to some of Fergie's quotes. We'll see what wisdom we can find, friends. When you lie down with dogs, you can't be shocked to get fleas. Oh, really, Fergie? Really? I'm at a loss for words. The jokes write themselves. I can't. It seems pointless to even say them. Oh, dear Lord. Listen to the next one, friends. When you lie down with a wolf, you must count yourself lucky to come out with your jugular intact. Oh, you think, Fergie? Count yourself lucky that you spent these decades living at Royal Lodge, ordering Amazon stuff, doing a really fluky children's book reading thing. That must be what all of our Amazon packages were. Imagine being surrounded with ancient artifacts from the royal family and you're ordering this bunch of crap from Amazon. I don't get it, friends. Okay, let's see her next quote. Fergie's next nugget of wisdom from the Fergmeister. I have always sailed close to the wind, through storm and calm, over the roughest whitecaps. Yeah, when you make bad decisions, you're going to experience constant storm and calm over the roughest whitecaps, friends. Oh, then the reporter says, but most important, anyone wishing to emulate Miss Ferguson should bear these words in mind. So here's her last quote. When you have touched the flames of hell, a branding iron is only a mild inconvenience. Well, I think that tells us Fergie's going to be back, friends. She's going to stick her head above that parapet again, wherever she might find herself. There was one report that said she was looking for one-bedroom flats in London because she can't stand to be away from the city. She can't stand to not be in the thick of things and have attention and be involved. And that reminded me of a show that Britain's Channel 4 did called The Windsors and their portrayals of Fergie because, oh my God, friends, seems like they were a bit right on.
I don't know, cutting her out of our lives just for money.
Oh, girls! Oh, I knew you wouldn't forget Mother's Day. Oh, this for me. Oh.
If y'all have seen it, let me know what you think in the comments. Now, for comparison, in 2022, 2 years after their freedom flight, we have Meghan Markle talking with Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Now, saying there will be no reality shows. Because while talking to him, Meghan says, is this my audition for Real Housewives of Montecito? Ha ha. And Andy says, you don't have to audition. We will build a show around you. But then, Meghan has to get demure and royal right at that time. And then Meghan shuts him down and says, no, there will be no reality shows. Her reason for giving that is because she had to stop watching once her own life filled up with drama. And she said this right before their Harry and Meghan docu-series premiered on Netflix. Honestly, y'all, what would you call that other than a reality show? It was Harry and Meghan sitting around in houses they rented, talking about their supposed real life, showing clips from things they do. Like, what is that but a reality show? So, yeah, that's another way that Fergie and Meghan parallel there because they both started out post royal life saying that they weren't going to do certain things, and they both ended up doing all of them so far. By 1997, Fergie was doing ocean spray cranberry juice commercials, like I said before. Let's take a look at one of them, friends.
When you're known for being high-spirited, you tend to attract a bit of attention. So I want to look my best. That's why I drink light style juice drinks with the same great ocean spray taste, but with 2/3 fewer calories. Light style gives me a real zing, especially when I serve it with ice. Cheers.
Ocean spray. It's your zing.
So that was Fergie's first commercial, friends, all, poking fun at being a royal and that type of thing, and the photographers and stuff. The palace is very disapproving, but they kind of considered it one of the more innocent things Fergie could be doing to make money at that point. Next, after that, we have Fergie's Weight Watchers commercial. She had like a 10-year deal with Weight Watchers. Like most of Fergie's business ventures, it eventually went straight down the drain. due to her own actions.
It's harder than having a thinner mother. It's harder than being called the Duchess of Pork. It's the hardest thing in the world, staying on a diet.
Introducing 123 Success.
It's a real diet breakthrough. From Weight Watchers.
No complicated counting.
I like that.
And no food's a no-no.
It makes the hardest thing in the world a lot easier. 123. It's working for me.
123 Success. New from Weight Watchers.
Fergie and Megan even have similar style there, friends. Look at that. Sleek hair, sleek black clothes. Fergie got her roll slowed on that pretty quick because of the death of Princess Diana. That Weight Watchers commercial had come out just a little bit before Princess Diana was tragically killed in that Paris tunnel accident, and the commercial was pulled. So, in the next video, I'm going to go into more of the middle life timeline where Sarah and Meghan Markle have all these parallels. But to wind up, I want to read an article that Sarah Vine wrote a few months ago about the parallels between Meghan Markle and Sarah Ferguson. The article is on the Daily Mail, and I'll put a link in the description, but it's behind a paywall. And I found where someone posted screenshots of the article on Reddit in the St. Meghan Markle subreddit. So I'll include a link to that post too for anyone who wants to read along. Okay, here's her article. The more I think about it, the more the parallels become blindingly obvious, scary even. The annoyingly perfect sister-in-law who never puts a fingernail wrong. The marriage to the slightly better looking, wayward, but not quite as bright second son. The heirs of a princess, but without any of the graces. Expensive tastes and a grabby, ambitious nature, casting themselves as kind and caring while showing complete disregard for everyone else's feelings, framing themselves as victims by way of deflecting responsibility for their own actions, using their royal connections for personal gain while showing a total lack of respect for the institution of the monarchy. The Duchess of Sussex or Sarah Ferguson, Meghan Markle or the Duchess of York, former Duchess of York. Different generations of royal consorts, strikingly similar stories. Of course, the specifics are very different. As unpleasant as the Duchess of Sussex has been towards the royal family, and particularly her sister in law, the Princess of Wales, however offensive her mocking of the late Queen or her shameless cashing in on her title while deriding the history and traditions behind it, she is not yet in the same league as the former Duchess of York. This week's revelations about Sarah Ferguson's connections with Jeffrey Epstein have made for very uncomfortable reading, especially for someone like me, the writer says, who over the years had come to think of her as a woman who, while not necessarily the most fiscally competent person or someone who always engages her brain before acting on her instincts, was a fundamentally well meaning and sincere individual, misunderstood even. Yeah, I never bought that personally, friends. I see now that I was totally, completely, utterly hoodwinked. I'm the last person to want to see someone getting canceled, but honestly, lying in an interview about your relationship with a convicted sex trafficker, pretending you knew nothing about it when you clearly did, saying you're severing all ties, and then just a few weeks later sending a groveling email rowing back. It is all, I'm afraid, evidence of someone who is as morally bankrupt as she seemed financially at the time, although she avoided that official definition. I don't think there's much coming back from this. Still, it makes me sad. Sad for her daughters because they're inevitably going to have to pick up the pieces of their shattered mother. Sad for the King Charles because it's obviously a massive headache, which, quite frankly, he doesn't need right now. And sad for those people who invested in Brand York, including many noble charities who have been forced to sever ties with her. What a god awful miss. It's never easy marrying into the royal family, and the scrutiny must be exhausting. Sarah Ferguson certainly suffered more than her fair share of that. That said, the rewards are considerable: privilege, status, security, hot and cold running staff, endless opportunities to pursue one's private passions. There are plenty who would gladly exchange their daily drudgery for a slice of that pie. And indeed, there are plenty of royal consorts, from the late Duchess of Kent to Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, and of course the Princess of Wales, who managed the downsides with charm and the upsides with gratitude. With two notable exceptions, the Duchess of York and the Duchess of Sussex, different generations, same problem. The fact that they married both spares, significant? I suspect so. Both came on the scene as vivacious, rather racy young women, what young people today like to call disruptors. Neither fitted the conventional mold of a royal spouse. Ferguson was the archetypal Sloane Ranger, all fun, 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 velvet hair braids and ballet pumps. Meghan was the more refined 21st century version, infinitely more polished, but no less ambitious, and gasp, a divorcee. At first, they both felt like breaths of fresh air, welcome injections of chutzpah and energy into the somewhat staid royal ranks. Their own personalities suited the more carefree characters of the second-born heirs. Andrew with his reputation as Randy Andy, Harry with his naked billiards playing Las Vegas past. Yeah, Harry is lucky that his name doesn't rhyme with anything that, like, Randy or anything like that, because with his past, he definitely would have gotten that too. They love the glamour and the limelight, the toast and the tiaras, and they got them. Dazzling, taxpayer funded weddings for both, watched by millions of royal fans around the world. Sarah had a Burmese ruby and diamond engagement ring chosen to match her red hair, and her wedding day was a national holiday. Meghan's ring was set with diamonds from Princess Diana's collection, and their Windsor wedding cost more than 30 million pounds. But as both women settled into their royal existences, the inevitability of their situation slowly dawned upon them. They were not the main attraction. Someone else was. They were just the support act, and that wasn't good enough. They wanted more. In the Duchess of York's case, she wanted her toes sucked by an American financier and the freedom to pursue a career as a chat show pundit and all around rent a royal in America. Her lucrative contracts with the likes of Weight Watchers helped turn around her financial fortunes, but not before she had sold every part of herself she could. The Duchess of Sussex is not far behind. That's her with Love Megan's show on Netflix, her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. This was before, I'm breaking in here to say this was before she had to change the name to As Ever because she couldn't trademark American Riviera Orchard, just like, all of us haters online kept saying we were right. We were correct. It's not just hate. We see her being ridiculous and we call it out. We turn out to be right. Anyway, her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, the Duchess of York once launched her own brand of tea and biscuits, while the Duchess of Sussex is an investor in Clever Brands, an instant latte brand, and endless self serving confessionals. They both have starred in documentaries about themselves. Sarah's was a six-part documentary series focusing on her personal struggles, broadcast on Oprah Winfrey's OWN network. And the TV superstar is something else they have in common. Oprah having conducted the famous interview with Harry and Meghan in 2021, in which the Duchess accused senior royals of racism and downplaying her mental health struggles. Then there are the children's books, Sarah's Budgie the Little Helicopter series, and Meghan's The Bench, with her and Harry's Archwell Foundation generously donated to libraries, schools, and nonprofit organizations in the US. But perhaps the most striking thing they have in common is their taste for the finer things in life. This is something that comes up time and again in private conversations with people who know or have known them both over the years. They both demand and expect the absolute VIPest of VIP treatment at all times. Not for Sarah and Meghan, the modest surroundings of Frogmore Cottage. The Duchess of York reportedly has her own wing at Royal Lodge, even though she and the prince have been divorced for 30 years now, 3 times the length of time they were married. As for the Duchess of Sussex, she never tires of sharing snippets of her luxury Montecito lifestyle in a mansion they paid more than 11 million for in 2020. She and Harry seem to go everywhere by private jet, and her outfits are never knowingly undervalued. And like the Yorks, the Sussexes like to hang out with wealthy, successful people, people such as Tyler Perry, the businessman and entertainer who, in 2020, lent them his house for a period after their freedom flight and also provided them with security. Perry, who is godfather to the couple's youngest, Lilibet, is no Epstein, but he's also not a wholly straightforward acquaintance. His shows, while commercially successful, are considered very controversial, and some, including the film director Spike Lee, have accused him of reinforcing stereotypes about Black people. And in June this year, an actor named Derek Dixon filed a lawsuit against him seeking more than 200 million in damages for a variety of alleged sexual offenses, including creating a coercive, sexually exploitive dynamic at the workplace. Perry's legal team have denied all charges, describing them as a scam. The case is ongoing. The situation that the Duchess of York now faces ought to be a red flag for the Sussexes. There are far too many parallels for comfort. It would be a tragedy if the Sussexes were to find themselves, like the Yorks, former Yorks friends, caught up in a Hogarthian progression where the cast of characters grows ever more and more questionable as their need for money and patronage increases. It's a cautionary tale. Let's hope they take heed. Now, in addition to just coincidental parallels, there are real connections between Meghan and Fergie in the sense that Meghan has made it clear that she knew Eugenie before she knew Harry, that they were friends from hanging out at Soho House together. Now, knowing Princess Eugenie puts complete doubt on Meghan's statement where she claims that the first time she saw Prince Andrew, she thought he was one of the Queen's aides. Like, oh, who is that man holding the Queen's purse? She thought it was one of the Queen's assistants. How in the hell are you gonna know who Princess Eugenie is, actually be friends with her, and not have a clue who her father is that caused her to be a princess? Especially considering Megan has made, oh, so clear so many times that she is very deep into details. She is meticulous. She's a researcher. She doesn't make those kinds of mistakes. Oh, she makes a lot of mistakes. We know that. But yeah, she tried to claim she was friends with Princess Eugenie before she knew Harry, and Eugenie was instrumental in hooking them up. And they said that they were friends on, I believe it was Instagram. And Eugenie was scrolling through and saw Megan doing one of those Goonie filters with the dog ears and stuff. And Harry was like, "Oh, who's that?" You know, Meghan Markle is really going to tell us that she was friends with Princess Eugenie on Instagram and still didn't know who Prince Andrew was. I think she's full of shit, friends. What do y'all think? But then there's also the fact Harry told us about this in Spare. He said that Fergie was the person to teach Meghan how to curtsy. Now, we all know that she already knew how to curtsy because she did it in Suits. However, they have both tried to portray that this was a shock to her because, oh, yeah, you know, American. She doesn't know anything. How could any American possibly know anything about the royal family? So Meghan's first meeting of the Queen was her and Harry going to have lunch at Royal Lodge with Andrew and Fergie. So we've got an article here. This is from last year, October 2024. And it's after Fergie had realized that it wasn't good to be cool with Hagen and Mary. Hagen and Mary, did y'all hear me? Meghan and Harry. Fergie's cryptic 10-word comment about Meghan Markle after teaching her to curtsy. Sarah Ferguson was one of the first royals Meghan met when she was introduced to her now husband's family, and now Fergie has offered up a fresh perspective on her relationship with the Duchess. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle first started dating, she had to be introduced to the vast royal family. And the couple has not held back in offering up details about the Duchess' first meeting with several of Harry's royal relatives in the early days of their romance. Between their controversial Netflix series and Harry's memoir, Spare, the pair have lifted the lid on what it was like for Meghan to meet the likes of King Charles and the Prince and Princess of Wales for the first time. However, among the first royals to actually meet Meghan, even before the late Queen, was Harry's aunt, Sarah Ferguson, who celebrates her 65th birthday today. In the Netflix series, Meghan described how she went to Fergie and her ex husband's Prince Andrew's Royal Lodge home for lunch. And when learning that the late monarch was going to drop by, the Duchess of York gave the former Suits star a lesson in how to curtsy. Similarly, Harry wrote in Spare how Fergie asked Meghan, "Do you know how to curtsy?" He added. Meghan shook her head. Fergie demonstrated once. Meghan imitated her. It seemed that Fergie had struck up a bond with her nephew and his new love interest when they married and later lived at Frogmore Cottage in Windsor. They would have been neighbors to Andrew and Fergie. How often do y'all think they hung out, friends? Betting it's quite a bit. However, in an interview with The Telegraph last year, Fergie cryptically said, "I don't really know Meghan. I haven't met her." We know one thing about Fergie, she's going to lie. She added, "I spoke to her at the funeral and I thought she looked absolutely beautiful. I think she is beautiful. She's made Harry very happy, and that is so nice. Honestly, he's so happy with her. She really loves him, and I think that's beautiful. And that Diana would be proud of him and her lovely grandchildren." I'm not so certain about that, friends. Diana cut off Fergie in her last years before her death because she disapproved of Fergie doing some of the types of things that Meghan and Harry do. I don't think Diana would have ever cut off her son, but I don't think she would have approved. Anyway, the article continues. Earlier this year, Fergie shared a candid insight into royal life as she made a veiled reference to the ongoing friction taking place within the royal ranks, including Harry's feud with his father, King Charles, and his brother, Prince William. Speaking to People magazine, she opened up about family togetherness, telling the publication, "I think family unit is key. I think the key to life is that we all support each other." The Duchess then added, "And also forgiveness is a great thing. I think forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of others." Oh yeah, Fergie, she loves forgiveness. She's hoping for some more of that now, friends. In recent months, Fergie has been increasingly welcomed back into the royal fold and attending several family events alongside her ex husband, Prince Andrew. At Christmas, she joined the royals at Sandringham for their annual walk to church on Christmas morning and attended a memorial service for the former King Constantine of Greece at Windsor Castle in February. In March, she was also among a select few members of the royal family that joined King Charles for the annual Easter Sunday service at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. So, yeah, for any of you that have seen my previous recent video about Fergie. Like I said, the royals, oh, they constantly keep redeeming and forgiving Fergie no matter what. And I went over in that video the reasons why. I'll put a link to that one in the description too, friends. I feel like Fergie and Diana's downfall is a real parallel because it very, very much is similar to Meghan and Kate, what was described as their ultimate downfall out of Prince Harry's mouth. He actually formed those words with his mouth and put them out there into the ether and spare. So let's take a look, friends, at what I'm talking about. In Fergie's book that I mentioned before, My Story, her first book, well, not her first book, but her first autobiography, she wrote about her relationship with Princess Diana. As per usual, Fergie always lies about everything. She lied to Oprah in an interview. Oprah asked what happened with Fergie and Diana's relationship, and Fergie was like, I have no idea. No, she knew. Okay, this article says, here's a sentence I'm fairly confident nobody has written before. I've recently become obsessed with Sarah Ferguson and Diana, the Princess of Wales, after discovering their friendship is believed to have come to an abrupt end when Fergie told everyone she got a verruca from one of Diana's shoes. Fergie wrote in her memoirs that she and Diana were so close they would even share their heels in true gal pal fashion, but that this once led to Fergie contracting a plantar wart. Allegedly, and this comes from Tina Brown's unauthorized take on Diana's life, the comical indiscretion was so humiliating to the princess that she never spoke to the Duchess again, and that was it. Their friendship, all because of an infected shoe. A year later, Diana was dead. Now, the reason why this parallels so much to me is because in Spare, Harry made the choice to write that Kate was physically upset whenever Meghan asked to borrow her lip gloss. People are different. A lot of women I know say that would be no big deal. Other women are like, ooh, no, I definitely would not ever share my lip gloss with anyone. Everybody has different, feelings on that sort of thing, and it's all okay. But Harry put in the book a lot of stuff like that about Meghan wanting to borrow Kate's lip gloss and Kate not being very reluctant to let her, about Meghan mentioning Kate having baby brain and her hormones, and Kate being upset because she's not used to that being talked about publicly and didn't want it to be. Very, very similar, friends. I feel like by the time Fergie wrote that book, she should have known better. I feel like she was trying to embarrass Diana, and Diana said, well, be embarrassed. You're never speaking to me again. And Kate's probably went the same route with Meghan, I suspect. Anyway, I'm going to stop here and edit. Let me know what y'all think in the comments, friends. If you see the parallels, let me know. Or if you see more that I've missed, because there are so many, I can't even get them all into one video. Have a good day, friends.